Richard trying to scoot there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Pod Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I am John on a hoagie-free episode. Hoagie-free
Beat me to the punch. I was going to be the first one to slander hoagies, but it's fitting. It's just fitting that you're the one to do it. But yes, as John alluded to, we are without hoagie, but great consolation prize. We got Matt Casey.
I love being the consolation prize to Hoagie, but I guarantee this is going to be the least structured episode we've done in like 6 months because Hoagie hasn't done the banners. This is going to be ABB theater.
It's going to be a straight up comedy, but it's going to be a lot of discussion just based off of observations from camp moving forward, where things are going to come from in terms of scoring, which we'll get into here. But first and foremost, we do want to start with, in terms of, the play so far, practices as well. There's been tons of reports out about it. John, what are you taking away from the Flyers' performance in these games, practice, everything? Let it rip, man.
Does it count if you spell it? Because like what we're watching right now on the ice, we are FUCKED. I've been trying to pull some sort of positive doing a Matt Casey, but like, let's be fair. Some of our main pieces have not been on the ice for these games, but can't score. Right, our number one pairing. Granted, for a game, the first time they played looked like a hot mess. I mean, at this point, Michael Leighton is going to be playing goal for us.
He took us to a Stanley Cup. I mean,
it's really, really hard to pull anything that's positive. Albeit Noah Cates, I've really enjoyed. I've been inspired by his play. But the problem for me with that is he is a player with a clear ceiling. Right, he is not going to be a top line guy at any point in time. Sure. When your bright spot is a guy who, like, on his most ultimate day, could maybe hang on the second line for like a game or two, it's a big problem.
Not much to get excited about.
It's a big problem there, So that's my general first swoop of my takes.
Yeah. I agree. Matt Casey, what are you thinking so far?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned. And, we won the first preseason game, I think, and then we've had like a grand total of 4 goals since then, or like 3 goals since then. And I know we'll get into
preseason. I think it was a rookie game.
No, we won we won one game.
We won one,
Okay.
And and then you go in and 2 of the 5 goals we've scored, which if I do my math right, that's 40%, are on 2-man advantages. And so it is looking. I'm very concerned.
5-on-3 power plays looking
in that realm, but this will lead into the larger conversation. There are still 45 people in camp. That is 2 full teams. I don't know how you can really measure it, but I was just looking for something more to grab onto, like, ooh, that looks really good. And I haven't found that yet.
No, I'm encouraged, back to John's point, that Noah Cates seems to be getting a really, for lack of a better term, a complete look from Tortorella. Like, he mentioned it specifically in his presser the other day about wanting to see him at center. And he even mentioned, like, he's stronger on the wing, but we want to see him at center. And I like
no
that.
centers.
Exactly. And I mean, whether it's due to the fact that we have no centers or the fact that regardless of, the injuries to center, like if you want to give him a look at center,
Right.
not a bad thing. I think it's great that they're giving him looks and he's getting an extended look at that as well. So good to see that. Encouraged that they are also, again, kind of grasping at straws here, but like they're giving D'Angelo a couple looks in terms of pairing him with Provorov, pairing him with York, like different partners.
They didn't end up doing that, right?
They didn't
with the D'Angelo
I
thing.
don't know.
I don't know. They had mentioned he was excited. Like I saw him, he was excited to play with York and be paired with him. So I mean, I like the eagerness at the very least. If we're gonna discount the fact that he might not have actually been paired with York, like I mean, I think the guy's got a good mentality heading into the season at least. Knowing that they're going to probably ask a lot of him. And he looked up to the task the other night when he had the goal. So encouraging, very like on the complete opposite side in terms of goalie, not encouraged whatsoever. It's Grosnick. We talked about the whole situation a few weeks back. Like I'll pose it this, Matt Casey, what's your confidence level in terms of our options at this point?
Who played last night? Urson?
I think so.
And
I think Grosnick got some time.
Urson's looked good.
Urson's looked good. Obviously with Hart, like nobody knows what's going on. He's still tuning his guitar somewhere. And
that right key.
And what's the other guy's name?
Grosnick,
Sandstrom appears to be hurting a bit. I'm scared to death with goalie. And the fact that Hart lasted 2 days of practice and got hurt, that doesn't bode well for an 82 game season. So I don't know how anyone can feel good about goal. Grosnick the other day, and he played in the Boston game, I think, where we ended up getting shelled. Even though actually I think we played a decent first period there, we ended up getting shelled. So, and you can do the surroundings. I'm tired of making excuses. Like at some point, people have got to start showing up for this. But so I would say confidence level is I don't know. We're at threat level midnight here. I'm not feeling good. Is Alex Lyon still around? Can we get Lyon back here?
Honestly, though, like that brings up what I want to say. Like, if Carter Hart is already banged up, and Felix Sandstrom is dealing with, they've got to go out, and there's got to be some veteran out there, right?
Fucale's on waivers right now, to my knowledge. Like, not a terrible Zach Fucale. I think it's Washington, if I'm not mistaken. He's been behind some really good goalies and just kind of not necessarily a victim of the system, but like, I mean, I don't know. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Like, if the idea with Chuck Fletcher is this restabilization or whatever the hell it's called, like you need to have some sort of stability in net.
Some starting point. Yeah.
Right. Like we can't already be thinking about we're going to have 6 to 7 net minors this season. Like, but look,
non-flashbacks
at this point, like he's got to go out and get somebody where it's like, all right, is he the best option out there? Nobody's better than Troy Grossnose or whatever his name is. Like, there's what's Braden Hope be doing? Is he still around?
Right.
Like, just some has been at this point.
Boy. I don't want to isn't Mrazek like doing well somewhere? I think he played last night for
Toronto still or somewhere else now. I can't remember.
All right.
As I said before, we have 45 players still in camp, which is 2 full squads. And so it's clear to me, and I don't think he's ever tried to hide it, that Tortorella is using this camp to find who can play versus trying to refine the veterans game. Part of that is I think his hand is being forced there because like the veterans keep getting hurt. But like, I think that you'll probably, and I'm interested to see who ends up playing tomorrow night. I don't know if they've released that roster or not yet. But then they have 8 full days before they start. I think like opening night of the season is like this Friday for some teams. Like we have like 8 full days between the last preseason game and the first game. I'm sure Torts is going to go have them do like a ropes course and a trust fall or something like that, because friendship's going to be the victor in this team. But I think that's the time where the systems have to be implemented, where the camaraderie needs to happen, where guys need to get friggin' healthy, because and it's like I'm concerned about the first few games, because it's just going to be clear that this team, as it's designed, even though I don't know how it was designed, like by throwing shit against the wall, isn't going to have any time together, and so they're going to be working it out in real time.
Well, part of the problem too, Casey, is like to piggyback off of the idea that there's still 45. Is that what you said? 45 people still at camp?
That's the last number I saw.
There's 2 separate teams essentially.
Nobody has separated themselves from this. Like you got Cam York, where it's like, well, yeah, sure, okay.
He's been looking better. Like a week ago, I kind of crapped on York, but like
I like Tortorella's comments about him though. Right. How he wants him to be who he is now, as opposed to down the line here. Like he wants to see it now, which I'm encouraged by. I think he's got high hopes for him.
But then guys like Owen Tippett, I feel like the blonde from Muppet Treasure Island with the high pitched voice. There's gotta be something better than this. Like, what the hell is going on with this guy?
More importantly, where the hell do you get these?
That's one of my favorite movies.
That was
Muppet
the
Treasure
most
Island.
obscure reference I've ever heard in my life.
Like,
you guys don't like Muppet Treasure Island?
I've never seen it.
What?
Like the Muppets freak me out. Yeah,
dude,
a bunch of puppets. Like,
I told one of my students that they laugh like a Muppet because they like don't produce words. I just
better be careful with that one.
They do the Muppet laugh.
Like, not to sidetrack too far, but how does one become like a professional puppeteer? Like what venture in life do you go to? You're like, yeah, this is looking good for me. I'm gonna be.
I want the inspiration story.
I think I got a future in this.
One day I was at KB Toys and the stuffed animal talked to me.
Same premise with us. Like, hey, I think I'd be good at podcasting.
That's a little different.
Just like Hoagie still thinks he's going to be a hockey player, and he's missing tonight.
Oh, boy.
He's got a better chance being a puppeteer.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Could you just imagine him with the little ventricle? Hi, I'm little Hoagie.
Anyway,
it's not Hoagie. It's like, hi, I'm Slider.
Henry Hoagie.
Get it, little Hoagie Slider?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Yeah,
I get it.
Anyways, no. We get to, I mean, kind of expanding on camp. Like we talked about it a little bit last week, how Tortorella is running a tight ship in camp, and you're starting to see you're starting to hear at least somewhat in terms of what his expectations are. Like he will pinpoint players. He'll pinpoint, like he said the other day, he didn't think Provorov and D'Angelo played well. He said they played like crap.
Oh,
yeah, like
crap. Yeah.
I mean, and kind of branching off of that, like John, give me your overall take on just the overall clearness and the overall just being that clear and like decisive in terms of what his thoughts are.
I mean, I like it. I think that it's something that we've been kind of hoping for. If we're going to get a shit sandwich, we might as well have a coach that's willing to tell us that it's an actual shit sandwich and they're not feeding us a bunch of crap. The only thing is, like, I listen to Tortorella and I love his candor, but I'm like, it really worries me when it sounds like the coach is just subliminally saying, we're screwed. Like, he's just like, we got all sorts of problems. I got no idea what the hell this is going to look like. We're a long ways away from having a good product on the ice. We got to get our head right first. It's like, shit.
Isn't that kind of like, I mean,
no, it is, but
it is a little encouraging that he can diagnose it that fast.
Well, I mean, dude, we've been diagnosing this for the past 2.5 years.
But like, he's starting to really see like just how bad we are.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like,
can we draw positives from that?
I guess like my problem is like I like the openness, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind it if he dialed it back just a little bit, because it's like I want some sort of false feeling that he at least is somewhat encouraged with what he's seeing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like me as a teacher, right? Having a really tough group of students, be like, how are they doing? I'm like, well, they're failing. They're going to fail fourth grade. You know what I mean? Like, I just
They
feel
all
like,
suck.
Yeah, can't read, can't write.
This kid doesn't even know a third of the alphabet. Like,
better kick him out now. You know, I just
you ever think about a vocational school?
There could be like a little bit more of a, well, it's hard to see what we've got here. Like, he's just painting a really dark picture for me, I guess.
I kind of disagree, though. Like, I mean, and in the sense that I would rather him be harsh and rather him tell it exactly how it is than have that false sense. Because let's be honest, yes, we know, all three of us, along with the millions of other Flyers fans that look at this team through a normal lens, if you will.
Hundreds is more
hundreds,
accurate.
yeah, it's dwindling. But like, I'd rather not have a false sense of like, oh man, I heard, Konechny's doing great in camp, when in actuality, it's
I'm not. I'm not trying to say that.
No, sure. Like, I'm not going to single out players or anything. Like, I don't want Tortorella to come out and be like, yeah, man, I think we're like an 80-point team. Like, no, I don't need to hear that, because first off, no one believes that. Like,
right. But I just think there's like this overall like undertone to like the house is on fire, and like I know the house is on fire, but I think you can get your point across without that kind of being present all the time.
I don't know, man. I think later in the season, John, I would agree with you. If he's still doing this in like January, it's like, oh boy. But we're still 10 days into them actually being on the ice. And
that's why I reverse you, Casey, on this. Okay. Like, I almost feel like if it was January and they were still at this point, then I'd be like, all right, like now just start telling, I'd almost, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it
that's
does,
when you hit the panic button, so to say.
I think that is, I think he's trying to gear these guys up to be competitive, and doing it in the way that he's doing, while it seems like blunt. It's also, it's the reverse too. When he does, if he ever does compliment somebody, oh, he played well, we're going to know that it's like, oh shit, he actually really played well.
Right.
And so I think he's just setting a level, and we've seen, the last how many coaches, it's just coach speak. I can't remember Hackstall saying anything, but it's like, oh yeah, we're seeing a lot of positive stuff from so-and-so. And like, then we get geared up. Like, I'm actually interested to see what, I mean, you mentioned Noah Cates before, and I would argue that he and Allison are the two that have kind of like pulled away, put a little bit away from the pack, but pulled away enough that like I'd be shocked if they're not in the opening lineup and playing significant roles. And we can debate all day long, like they're third or fourth liners, blah blah blah, but they're playing second line. Like I get it, but the fact that like, hey, it's not all doom and gloom, but like if somebody does well, he's gonna call it. But like only two people are actually doing well right now. And I don't even think he's complimented them, if I'm being honest with you.
I'd rather a guy like that, though, that's going to compliment the ones that have earned that compliment than opposed to a guy that's going to blow smoke up my rear end and be like, yeah, okay, these guys are doing great. Like, it's camp and blah, 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 blah. Like, and what worries me too, like, and I think I mentioned it in the group chat here, is that like we're in camp right now, which is typically an evaluation period, but you've got Tortorella saying things like, well, like, I'm not worried too much about their performance in camp. Like, I'm not worried about the preseason games and exhibitions and all that. Like, in my mind, and you guys chime in, obviously, like, how else are you going to evaluate these guys? Are we going to burn 10 games of the 15 games of the regular season? Like,
it's looking like it. Yeah.
So, and like, I asked, can we afford it? Really, we can. But like any coach, you want to be competitive. Like, why are you going to burn these regular season games as opposed to using these preseason games for what their purpose really is?
I think, honestly, I think, first of all, I might not be right. Like, originally when I pictured preseason, I was kind of picturing him implementing his system a little bit. It doesn't seem like that's happened at all. It's really just like evaluating players, but like maybe he really looked at what was going on in the locker room and through interviewing people, and he was like, you know what? Results for me this season aren't wins. He's like, I've really got to rip this down to the studs as a coach.
Sure.
And like, I can't afford to implement anything during the preseason because I've got to legit find out who is worth, working with first.
And
so
sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I would argue that, as I said, the next week, like he has a full week of practice before their next game. Like that's plenty of time to get the systems in. I don't think we're going to get the timing. It's not going to be pretty, but like, can anybody picture like a night, a first week game where you're like, oh boy, these guys are firing on all cylinders? Like no team is like that, but I was hoping we'd at least be like, okay, we're seeing this line start to mesh or this pairing start to mesh. And we haven't done
past
that.
2 seasons, we've had 2 like really good opening games or something where we've been like, oh, this team looks good. Oh, and then 10 games later, like, what are we going to talk about the rest of the year? They're already out.
You bring up good points because it's like, again, preseason is used as an evaluation period, but there is a new system going into place, obviously brand new coach. These guys, it's all new to them. So and honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm okay with there being a 10 to 15 game buffer, if you will, because this season there's really low expectations. So it's like, okay, in that 10 game stretch, let's say we go 2-5-3 if we're lucky, like 3 over. That's just probably stupid, but regardless, if we're going to see progress in that period where the top line gels together, second line's doing all right, third line, we move a couple pieces. We see like when AV took over, how many guys were playing fourth line center within the first 15, 20 games. Like we saw probably a dozen people mixing in and out of the lineup, seeing where they fit, Bonham and Rubstov, all those guys that aren't even here anymore. I'm okay with. Like that bottom 6 tinkering.
Right.
But by the end of those 10 to 15 games, I would expect at the very least one of those top 6 lines, first line or second line, to be pretty set in terms of who's on it. Am I wrong in that assumption?
I mean, I think here's the problem, right? Like we have this idea of like Tortorella and Fletcher are trying to make this team more stable, right? To restabilize. We are really not in a position to do that this season if we're going to continue to get hit by injuries. One, and we're weeding out kind of like the bad fruit, like, I don't know if that's even an expression, but I don't know. Like, I would almost be shocked if by November, right, the Flyers are in a position where Tortorella is like, this is my top 6, or like this is my top line, because you're looking at who knows if Couturier is going to be back, who knows what Farabee is going to be, and you would assume that those guys are going to take those roles.
Sure.
When return.
The biggest critique this team is understandably getting, because it's on the scoreboard, is lack of goal production. But you look at Konecny's played 1 game, Farabee hasn't played any, Coots hasn't played any, Atkinson hasn't played any. That is 4 of your top 6 players right there. Yeah. Hayes has been in there. I think he's netted 1, and then JVR. Thanks for showing up. But like that's kind of like your penciled in top 6, at least for most of the fans, I would argue.
Right.
Now, look, I think it should go up and back. I'd be fine with JVR playing on the third line, like all that sort of stuff. But like, I'm still worried about goal production, but I do think there is a defined reason. Unfortunately, that's injury, which like there's not a guarantee that those guys are going to be ready on October 10th or whatever the hell opening night is.
Well, you bring up both topics that we wanted to touch on here tonight as well, including, where are we getting goals from, injuries, like they all tie together, because the guys that are scoring the goals, typically your Farabees, your Couturiers, your Atkinsons, they're all out. They're hurt. So, I mean, in lieu of those injuries we'll get to here in a little bit, where right now are you looking at on this roster and saying that's the guy that's going to score the goals, that's the guy that's going to score, that's the guy that's going to help? Like, who's
there's gotta be something better than this.
There's absolutely something better than this. and it was passed by Chuck Fletcher and signed in Columbus.
I mean, part of the problem here is like I always viewed this team, even full health, as like a score by committee, right? There was nobody really on this team that you're like is going to pot 30 goals. Like I could barely pick 20 goal scorers, let alone 30 goal scorers. And it's like, yeah, Casey, you brought up like the big names, but in order to score by committee, you still need production from some of the people that we're seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we need someone to prove us wrong at this point. Like Owen Tippett, that's what you do, dude. Like that's legit. If you can't score goals, then you might as well be do. You might as well be playing beer league with the sandwich because, like, I have no use for you if you're a goal scorer who can't score goals. You know, Morgan Frost, he's got 3 assists, and that's great. I need goals.
Well, look, I'll say the 3 that I'm looking at are who I want to see. Let's even call it secondary scoring, I guess, but are Tippett, Frost, and Allison. Like those are the 3 that I think have the capability. I have Konechny in like the top.
Like a primary.
Yeah, he should be
right.
Konechny scored 20, like
23 or 24.
I thought he was like
Last
higher.
year?
I thought he was on pace. No. That was 2 years. 2 years ago.
I think it was like 24 is his career high or something like that.
But those are the 3 that, like, if those 3 can actually step up, and again, I'll coin the fire and ice line. Like if those 3 can step up, whether they're on a line together or not, I think that bodes pretty well. And I've always been impressed with Allison, and his health has always been the issue. Frost seems to be taking a step. Tippett, I'm not impressed with right now. And so I don't know. That's where I want it to come from to answer the question.
Sure.
It's funny too, because one of the things we're not talking about is we need scoring from the blue line. Like we need Tony DeAngelo.
Does Tony DeAngelo not answer that question? I
mean, hopefully, right? I mean, but
you would hope.
Cam,
right?
Cam York can do it. Sanheim theoretically can do it.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I'm looking here right now. Konechny had 24 goals in 66 games back in 1920. Like he was on pace in an 82 game season to probably, or at the very least, come close to breaking into the 30 range. But I mean, you look at 2021, 2021, 11 goals, 50 games, 16 goals in 79 games last year. Like he's lost that. And maybe you can attribute it to just the fact that overall the team wasn't good. But like, if we could see him get back to that form in 18-19, I believe it was 18-19, when he had 24 goals in 66 games, there's no reason to believe he can't mimic that production.
What changed though? Like what?
He signed a contract.
It's crazy to me. Like all
he's a father now too. Like all things that like you look at and you're like, that shouldn't affect his game. But like it does. I think about when we all became dads, like and
I'm so much worse in my job now. There's not even a question.
Absolutely.
I'm so much worse.
Derek, you were never good at your job. Let's be real.
You're not wrong, but regardless, like it's besides the point. Like I got worse.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, think about the podcast. I used to do this all the time, and I'm, putting up rundowns and all this stuff. And I had a kid, and I'm just like,
yeah, but you're not also being paid millions of dollars, dude.
That's true, but my livelihood depends on my job. Whereas with Konechny, like, I mean, I'm sure his livelihood depends on it too. But there's other things he could be doing, I'm sure.
I just think, like, in reality, we just need to understand that this is not going to be a team that's scoring a bunch of goals. We're gonna win games. We're gonna win 2-1 games. Like,
I mean, I think that's the goal. Is like,
right.
Pun intended. Is like you need to get 3 goals. You need to get 3 goals a game, and like I don't think that's a ridiculous number to get to. But you got to get 3 goals, and if you have a lead, you gotta have the defensive responsibility in the structure to lock it the F down, because like otherwise, we're not gonna avalanche the hell out of these people scoring 7 goals a game. Like it's just not gonna happen.
Historically, I don't think, and I could be wrong here, but remembering back to our conversation about Tortorella and his types of teams, I don't think they were ever very like high octane scoring all the time types of teams. Like they were a defensively structured team that prevented chances, blocked shots, reduced the amount of shots that they were facing every night. And that should be their focus, because ideally the defense could be improved from last year. Now with Ellis out, shocker. I'm not expecting a ton, but like, you bring in a guy like D'Angelo to help kind of supplement the offense, because he is an offensive minded defenseman. I think it helps on both ends, because he, and again, I know a lot of people have said this and maybe I'm mimicking them, but like, I think he could shock some people with his defensive play. I think he'll be all right and capable. I'm not going to expect him to shut people down like a Victor Hedman or Drew Doughty, but like, I think he could be all right.
Right. I mean, and I think too, like, with the understanding that this is not like the year we're going for it, right? Like, I think that you could walk away from this season going, defensively, we are a far better team than we were. Now let's work on improving the offense. Like, that puts the Flyers in a good position. If it's like this year is all about changing our mentality and just becoming a steadier defensive team, then it's like, okay, then we're getting rid of the dead weight, and now let's go out and figure out what the hell we can do with this offense.
And we'll actually have the money to do it.
Hypothetically,
with the with the Rays and JVR gone, like, we should have some money to play with next year,
right?
Sure. And maybe if Ellis retires, holy crap, I don't know what we would do.
And there's decent free agents that are going to be out there next year, and I'm sure in terms of they wouldn't probably do anything big at the trade deadline, but regardless, trading away Sanheim, but they're not going to bring in anything like of substance that's going to help them now, Right. But I mean, we touched on it vaguely too, in terms of the injuries. Like, we're seeing a lot of day-to-day guys, maintenance days, which, can be expected with the type of camp that Tortorella is running. But main concerns here, we go back to this same topic, goalie. Hart's day-to-day, essentially. Don't know, what is it, lower body or something like that. I don't know. Sandstrom's out. Atkinson too. I mean, again, a lot of these guys, I'm sure it's just nicks here and there. No big deal.
Provorov had a maintenance day.
Had a maintenance day. I'd rather him take the maintenance day now. But regardless, general question, how concerned are you guys with the amount of injuries that we're seeing right now?
I mean, as concerned as it gets. I mean, and I think the Flyers are just as concerned, because I think you're purposely keeping these guys off the ice going, we can't catch a break. I'm not going to put Cam Atkinson out there, and risk him getting hurt, or,
against some like AHL Neanderthal, who, like, look at what happened to to Zegras. Like,
Yep.
He got destroyed.
Yeah, Jesus,
Is he out? I don't even know. I didn't even.
I think they said he was going to be all right, but I'm not sure.
Like, that's the worst case scenario, and like, look, injuries are going to happen. I get it, but like, you play your. Again, I'm interested to see who they play on Tuesday, because I hope they play Provorov and Cam, and so like, just get them some timing.
Some sort of dress rehearsal.
Get them in there. Yep. So at least they have some speed, they're a little bit up to speed, but I also look back to years past, like we saw Giroux play one game usually in the preseason.
Sure.
That's also Claude Giroux, who is leaps and bounds better than a majority of the people in camp right now.
Right. But I'm saying in general, like the veterans you would see play one or two games, and that was about it.
The goalie is the actual real
concern. The goalie I'm scared about.
Yeah. Oh, terrified.
Because Carter Hart is going to miss time.
Yeah,
like it's a foregone conclusion. I'm pretty sure that Sandstrom has had injury. Like, I don't think it's ever been any big things. I'm sure he's missed time. Urson has missed time. I mean, Troy Grossnose is not my goalie. Hashtag not my goalie.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, how did it? At some point, something's got to break in our favor.
Everything's breaking.
I just don't know what it's going to be.
I liked Matt Casey's point of kind of like a dry run. Like, I want to see, at the very least, like, I don't need to necessarily see Provorov. I don't necessarily need to see Sanheim and Ristolainen again. Kind of know what we've got there. I want to see Provorov and D'Angelo together. I want to see Braun and York together. And I want to see, I mean, it's a good chance to see Braun and York together in a second pairing capacity, expanded minutes, just to get a better look at them. Like, don't play him the third pairing minutes. Give him a bigger look.
Yeah.
Put guys like Zamula on the third pairing.
Yeah.
See, like we kind of know what we have with Sealer and Connaught.
We're
like,
flush with 6'7" defensemen. Yeah, we're
But like maybe I couldn't tell you what another younger defenseman, like put him down there. Like I don't know if Millman or Wiley are still with the Flyers. Like put them with Zamula on the third pairing. Kind of see what happens. I mean, no harm in it. Well, unless they get hurt. Shocker.
Well, they can get hurt.
But at the end of the day, Zamula is probably the closest thing that you have with the Phantoms to an NHL quote unquote player.
Yep.
Right.
But like Millman, Wiley, throw them out there, see what happens. But give York, give Braun. You don't necessarily need to give Braun an extended look, but give that pairing an extended look.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we're going to have with Ristolainen and Sanheim together. Don't necessarily know what we have with Provorov and D'Angelo together, but know what we have in each of them separately.
I would say we have no clue what
No,
we're going to
we
have
don't.
with those two.
We know, again, we know what we have in them separately,
Right.
but together, like I want to see that dynamic. That's the priority, I think, for me on the blue line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's like that pairing has to work.
Yeah.
Like it has to work. Like I think that the Flyers made it a point last season that they don't want to move Ristolainen there. I don't think they want to move Sanheim there. They want to keep right
after he got burnt by DeBrusque the other
But they
night.
put Justin Braun.
Right. I'm making a joke.
You know, like it's just that they have no choice. Like Tortorella's got to sit down and go, I don't give a shit if you like one another. You got to find a way to gel because
I feel like that could be a good chance for them, though. I mean, two guys don't like each other, got to find a way to play with each other.
Sounds like a love story.
It's one of two ways. It's absolute disaster or just triumph.
Right.
How funny would it be if randomly it's after a penalty or something like that D'Angelo and Braun somehow end up on the ice together and it's magic. They catch lightning in a bottle.
And chances of that
Braun scores a hat trick.
Oh boy.
Tony's like, "Oh, I'll be the stay-at-home guy. You take the shots, all right?"
At this point, I need some crazy story. Like, we're going to try Jackson Cates on the blue line, and then all of a sudden he looks like Victor Hedman light.
It's like, holy shit.
That was, I mean, this is a long time ago, but it was the 04 playoffs where we went deep and we were so hurting on defensemen. They moved Sammy Kapanen. He played defense for the last 5 games of that series. And until he ended up getting pummeled by, I think it was in the Toronto series or something. He got absolutely pummeled, but he was playing defense and it was like, dude, Sammy Kapanen is not a defenseman.
Well, I mean, hell, Sam Morin's not a winger, and he played there. There's chances, but back to the whole goalie thing. And this is completely off topic, but I'm still kind of pissed off that they let Ustamenko go. That would have been an option. Good option, bad option, I don't know.
Right.
Would have been a option because he was within the system, but. Right now, I mean, who's Pat Nagel? I think it was the Reading goalie for a long time. Played a little bit with the Phantoms. I think he's still with the Flyers right now.
That's a Grosnick.
It's not even a Grosnick option.
Right.
Grosnick's good in the AHL,
Sure.
and Nagel's decent. You know,
Right.
We're talking bare effing bones right now.
And I mean, this is complete
threat level midnight here.
This is negligence on Fletcher's part.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big bash the office kind of thing, but this is not okay. Even Martin Jones last year, we were all like, what the I would kill for Martin Jones right now.
Seriously.
You joked, but man, if Michael Leighton can come back and play, why not? At this point, what's Boucher doing? Does he have the itch to get back on the ice? Let's see what Boucher can do.
Yeah. We're gonna need that team. We're gonna need that team that's we need the other team's emergency call up on every road game. We just see
a bunch of e-bugs.
Right? Yeah, we're gonna need them at this point. I mean, Christ, man. And revisionist history, you want to call it, but the Flyers organization, and I know it was a Hextall decision. I think it was a Hextall decision. No, it wasn't. It was a Fletcher. No. Why would you ever trade Stellaris for Talbot at this point? Like that to me still boggles my mind. And if he'd have stayed with the team, even if it was in like an AHL capacity, come up, fill the gap if need be, like what Lyon did for us, man, like you saw how Stellaris was with Anaheim. He's been playing pretty well.
So I looked on Cap Friendly just to see like unrestricted goalie free agents.
Oh God.
Braden Holtby, baby.
I think he retired though, didn't he? Like, didn't he say he retired or something like that?
Maybe, but like the rest of these guys, Tyler Wall, like doesn't he play basketball?
No, Tyler Wall was with us on a PTO.
Okay. Roman Durney.
Nope.
Tyler Parsons.
You could put these guys behind the counter at a McDonald's, and I would never be able to tell you that
Sparks.
they played goalie.
I've heard of that guy before.
Garrett Sparks, yeah, Toronto Marlies.
You know what, guys? Kurt Warner was working at the Home Depot or whatever the hell it was. Then he won
bag
Super
of groceries
Bowl.
or something.
It could happen.
I just like, I mean, but
kids and angels in the outfield. It could happen.
What you said though, Casey, with it being negligence, on Fletcher's part, like that's what I said when that whole free agency thing was done. I was like, center and goalie are going to come back and bite us in the rear end. He didn't address any sort of depth there.
Yeah,
and
look, that was pre-Fedotov. So like, okay, maybe there's an asterisk there that we can
the free agency thing.
I think so. Wasn't
no, that was post Fedotov.
June.
I don't know.
1st?
Yeah, and free agency wasn't until July.
No, really. But yeah, I mean that's concerning that like he didn't have the foresight. It's like, oh no, there's no way 2 of our goalies will get hurt during preseason, right? And sure enough, here we are. I want to flip it real quick back to like the injuries. I really hope that Atkinson and Farabee, and it sounds like Farabee's getting closer from
he's skating, which is great.
I hope that they are in the locker room and like they start playing, because I think about culture guys, and I see both of them as like cornerstone culture guys that like, if we're gonna lose, at least let's lose like, giving a good effort and having everybody in on the same, like we just don't have the blue line leadership right now. You know, Hayes is there, but he's rah-rah, and
he's a boy.
Who knows what he's doing, but like
Atkinson could potentially be the next captain. So why wouldn't you want him in there?
And like Farabee, I think is like, I hope he gets up to speed and he's doing well, because I do think he's another one where you're getting really good scoring from him, even though we've seen it before. If he can play up to potential, like he can be a pretty strong player on this team. And so I just like to go into the start of the season without Coots, and then God forbid Atkinson and Farabee and like all those guys, like that's bad.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good at all. I just, we could go on for hours about this and the level of concern, but ultimately what it's going to take, I mean, we need these guys back. Like Farabee, it looks like he might be a little bit ahead of schedule. With Couturier, I don't want to believe it until I see it at this point. I want him back. I want to see him healthy first and foremost. But the goalie situation scares the bejesus out of me in regards to what our options are right now, because we're looking at a pairing or a tandem of Urson and Grosnick at this point. Like,
this might be earlier than last year when we have to have that meeting. What are we going to talk about?
Panic button right now is so worn.
I was about to yell at you, Derek. I'm like, dude, don't start going through 23 free agents. That's going to be our entire show model for 23 weeks of free agency.
Would you rather the current roster or
the Chicago Wolves of the AHL? Jesus. No, I think, and this might be another point.
Hiatus.
Yeah, that's what we're going to have to take here soon.
That'll show, Chuck.
We're really going to have to go out, though, to get somebody. And whether that's a waiver pickup, whether that's one of the plethora of names John rattled off in terms of free agents, as appealing as they may be, we're going to have to get somebody. We're going to have to fill those holes. And
Well, I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think if you're going to see waiver pickups, it's going to be this week. Like
Right.
this is when final cut. I mean, I'm assuming everyone has to have their roster set by Friday, even though like
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, it must be the same day. I don't know. I may just be making that up. But
There's
like,
a deadline, I believe, that you have to have it set by, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken.
so like if it's going to happen, it's going to be this week, and it's going to be telling in one of two ways. If he picks somebody up, I'm even more scared, quite frankly, because that means that Hart is like out.
Sure.
Yeah. But I
and-
mean, couldn't you say the same if they didn't, though? Because it's like if they don't, are you still scared because you're like, well, there's no news about Hart coming back? Like, we'd probably find out that Hart's going to be healthy for the opener by that date in which the rosters need to be set, correct?
I would
With
hope
this
so.
team, you never know. I mean, the way they approach injury news,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's almost worse
just
than
got off the
Hextall.
day-to-day list.
At least with Hextall, we knew a time frame. It's like he was vague about what the injury was. Like, it's
Right.
lower body, it's upper body. Like, now it's like, oh, so 3 weeks ago in that game on the 2-minute mark of the second period, Carter Hart tore an ACL, but we don't know when he's coming back.
Week to week. Which
I mean,
is
Hart,
from week to week.
Hart hasn't played in a game yet, right? He took a hit in practice. Is that what this is stemming
That's
from?
what it looked like. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. And at this point, I could tell you what an injury is, and it was somebody else because everybody's hurt.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Confidence level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
like,
not
listen,
good, but can it go any lower? Like, are we at rock bottom at this point?
it's got. I mean,
Like-
no, it's got to be. I don't. I
say
truly. I got to be honest with you. I don't think. I mean, this entire team would have to be hurt in order for me to get to the point where I was last season. Like, at least with Tortorella, right? I've got
Mhm.
like some sort of turnaround.
Have
Where
one
it's like-
glimmer of hope.
Well, yeah, but last year it was all a mess.
Mhm.
Did you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
hear about that interview that Keith Yandel did with Spit and Chicklets? At least I think it was Spit and Chicklets. I'll be wrong. And he was like, we really sucked last year, but we had a great time in the locker room. Like,
Awesome.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Like, glad you had a good time, Keith.
The hell would
Yeah, we all had a great time watching you get a grandfathered into a friggin' lineup. That was awesome.
All right.
Just the way you wanted your career to end, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah. All right.
Interim coach Mike Yeo being like, yeah, take a seat, dude.
Like, by the way, we're working on line changes tomorrow. I mean, is there anything else you guys want to add to that discussion? I feel like this is a pretty good time to put a bow on this one.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Put a bow
I
on
got
it.
nothing.
All right. Well, before we put a bow on this here, I do want to ask, what is black and white and red all over?
Hoagie at beer league hockey or whatever it's called.
Close. You're close.
Oh,
It's
am I?
actually two nuns in a chainsaw fight.
Why is that a dad joke, though? That's
Yeah, that's not a dad joke.
it's just
I
like
don't
a
know, but it was funny.
tasteless joke.
It literally came from the
Not
book
clever.
labeled
Well,
dad
whoever
jokes.
wrote that book is bad.
You should
I don't know, man. There's some good ones in here.
tweet at him from the Pod Street account and be like, "Hey, man, we try to do your dad jokes and they're tanking." Like,
Right.
I mean, like, this
Right.
one's
They're
got
like
some decent
Chuck
ones.
Norris jokes without Chuck Norris in them.
An interesting fact about Moses: he had the first tablet that connected to the cloud. Get it?
okay, that one's a little bit witty, I suppose.
Decent.
Right.
There's
You
some
gotta have
decent
a-
ones in here.
Yeah, you gotta have a little New Testament love in there. Or
Yeah.
is that Old Testament? I don't know.
Who gives a shit? Old
It's a
Testament, New Testament. Who gives a shit?
They're both old.
Do you feel like it's Rocky and what's the other assistant coach's name?
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw. Are
Bradshaw.
like sitting in a dark room, like the coach from Waterboy, being like, "Okay,
Anybody have
in this
any
room,
ideas?
They're like trying to figure out how to X and O this friggin' thing, how to X and O them, and
Flip
they're
the lights
going
on and
insane. Thinks about making.
Bradshaw's the one going through the tape right now, seeing like, well, this is where they hung 7 goals on us in the second period. Rocky's just banging his head against the wall, like slowly. He's like the guy from The Longest Yard, the great Khali, like banging his head against the door.
He's updating his Indeed profile.
He's like, coach the Flyers. Like, maybe I'll skip that one.
It's like Walmart's looking for a bagger. I gotta go there.
You think any of these guys are going to list their experience with the Flyers on a resume? Anyway, so let's wrap this up then. Matt Casey.
Pod Street Casey. CASEY.
That's it. John?
You can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles. I would say look at the bottom ticker, but it's not there. But we're on all of them, so Google it. That's all right.
Bottom ticker's not there. I thought we had that,
but don't do it now because it's very, very late.
It is late, but it's there. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter, Pod Street Bob, John on Twitter at Pod Street Gobe. You can find all of us here on Twitter at Pod SD Bullies. Check out our affiliates over at Flyers High and Wide. They're on Twitter, Flyers HW, and the 5 Minute Major podcast on Twitter at 5 Minute Major Pod. Also, check out the Hockey Focus. We are now partnered up with them as well. They have podcasts covering every NHL team. Great. Yeah, John. I mean, if you'd like to say it, John, go ahead.
Say focus.
If you want to have some positive hockey podcasts, go to one of their podcasts.
Go to one of their podcasts.
Yeah, not ours.
Ducks one.
Yeah. Well, we are one of their podcasts, so go to one of the other.
I was saying one of their
other ones.
One of their Flyers, one of the teams that actually might win,
or the Swedish one.
You have to look. I think we're the only Flyers podcast on there, aren't we?
Well, yeah, but he just misspoke.
Yeah. Well, we're honored regardless.
You know what I'm saying.
We're honored to be the only Flyers podcast here on the only Flyers podcast.
Oh, good God.
On the Hockey Focus. Well, that's our time.
And, now we're going to get lambasted on that mess of a show. Bye.